Well, here we are. We're in week 5 of our Renovate series. And this week we're going to hear again from Gabe and Rachel talking about God's heart for us to be a generous people. So God bless you as you hear them out and then discuss the questions that challenge us to become more generous.
Hey guys, just to shake things up a bit, why don't we start off by taking a swing at this week's memory verse? Well, generosity is something that Jesus spent a lot of time talking about. And in Matthew chapter 6, verse 4, he says, "No one can serve two masters, for you will hate one and love the other, or you will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money."
Here Jesus tells us we simply cannot serve two masters. We will hate one and love the other. The contenders for the masters of our lives he is referring to are himself or the root of evil, which is the love of money. Now, money itself isn't evil. In fact, it can be used for very good things. Money can be an excellent tool for the kingdom of heaven, but it can be a terrible master of our lives.
Jesus talked less about heaven and hell than he did about money. Just think about that for a second. If ever Jesus was waving a red flag in our face and saying, "Hey, pay attention to this. This is important," this certainly was one of those times.
And Jesus spoke on money and earthly treasures often to remind us that they are fleeting and ultimately unsatisfying. He spoke of it often to remind us that chasing money can render us weak and powerless through the lens of eternity. He knows how easily our hearts can be consumed with the love of money. He gave us a very fair warning.
It might seem like we can have both a dedication to God and a dedication to money at the same time, but the truth is we just can't. It's impossible to prioritize both God and money equally. We will always put one above the other in some way, shape, or form. And I mean, if we're really honest, from there, the division of our priorities will definitely grow.
John Wimber, the founder of the Vineyard Movement, he once said this: "Show me your checkbook and I'll show you your priorities." Man, ouch. That could be painful, right? So what does your checkbook or your banking app say about your priorities? Were we generous givers last month or tempted takers?
Whether we realize it or not, we've placed a priority on certain things in our lives or on a standard of living that is revealed by how we use our finances. And we've then created a pattern that we'll do this month and the next month and the next until either God or our pursuit of money are the ones calling the shots in our life.
When we allow God to call the shots with our finances, we will absolutely see how great a servant money can be, rather than a terrible master. When we follow the Spirit of God with our wallet, there are treasures waiting to be stored in heaven and blessings waiting to be given to those around us. This week's first question is all about that idea. So let's get into that question now. Throughout this Renovate series, we've been focused on tearing down the walls that separate us from God and rebuilding our lives around Him. The idea or ethic of generosity is a huge aspect of doing this renovation process. The treasures here on earth are abundant. We've been blessed to live freely in the land that gives us opportunity and prosperity for ourselves and the generations that will follow us.
The trouble is, though, that if we're following our own desires, the treasures that we seek are fleeting and temporal. As children of God, He urges us to look beyond this lifetime and to store our treasures safely in heaven. The American dream is often painted as the ultimate achievement for a successful and fulfilling life. But God teaches us that the fulfillment of material things will lead us down a path that is not actually fulfilling at all. The treasures we seek in houses or jewelry, security, land, gadgets, all manner of stuff will only leave us with an unsatisfying and wasted life.
In Matthew, when Jesus tells us to store up our treasures in heaven, he tells us they can't be stolen or rusted or eaten by moths. We know here on earth nothing is truly secure. Even the most top-notch security system in the world can't protect us against the power of time.
Right, and if you think about it, the question here is not actually where or what is your treasure. The question here is what's the attitude of your heart. If your heart is in this world, you'll naturally seek the things of the world. Money, security, and happiness will all start to blend together. And if the attitude of our hearts is one of taking and keeping, we'll soon find ourselves far from the treasures that Jesus was talking about.
The original American dream began with a noble attitude. To quote from James Truslow Adams, the American dream was described in such a way that life should be better and richer and fuller for everyone, with opportunity for each according to the ability or achievement, regardless of social class or circumstances of birth. There's no direct mention of money or material value. It wasn't long, though, before comparisons were drawn. Those who had more money and could afford nicer things were seen as successors to the American dream. Those who did not have as much were considered failures. To some degree, this attitude continues today.
That's so true, and generosity oftentimes has little place in a heart that pursues excess. The American dream has us wired to seek out materialism. It's the part of the I deserve this or the me first mentality that plagues our first world culture. There are countries all around the world that lack the Western overflow of money and resources. And if left unchecked, it can become our obstacle rather than a true blessing.
And that's not to say that you shouldn't have money. Where your heart is, that is the most important thing of all. Jesus is very clear when he says, where your treasure lies, there you will find the desires of your heart. He most definitely tells us to seek treasure, just not the kind we're used to. I know very wealthy people who have giving and generous hearts. There's no denying that money as a tool can serve the kingdom of God.
Yeah, but if your heart is in the world and for the world and its spoils, it's only fair to ask, can we really be trusted with such a powerful tool? That idea is the basis for our second question, so let's jump right in and discuss that now. You know what pops into my head when I hear the word treasure? Well, green paper bills, silver and gold, Xbox Ones and iPhones, things like that. Those are the colorful and universally recognized treasures of the world if you ask almost anyone.
Throughout my Christian life, there have been many treasures that I've realized can be given or taken that have nothing to do with money or materials at all. Not all treasures are bought or sold or buried underground. There are priceless treasures in this life that come from heaven itself.
Well, for example, forgiveness is one of the greatest treasures. When you really think about it, when we became Christians and we began our relationship with God, this is the first treasure that He gave us. We didn't buy it, God did. And it wasn't with money, it was with His only Son.
If you think about it, time itself is a precious treasure that you can't just put a price tag on. Without it, there would be no place or means to work, to help each other out, to grow, or even live. We can give our time to others, to the Lord, and to ourselves. You've heard people say time is money, but in this case, time is a treasure worthy of great value.
And God has the most generous heart of all. And He really does give abundantly to His people. He's blessed us with these talents and love and all manner of things that come from His Spirit. All this so we could be ready to bless those around us. So many times we can miss out on ways to invest in the kingdom of God. And these are investments that have little to do with money.
He sees every penny, every prayer, every promise that we make. To limit the treasures of heaven to simply money or what money can achieve is to limit the awesome power of our generous and loving God. When we invest in the kingdom, God will invest into our hearts. He told us in Malachi 3:10, "Bring all the tithes into the storehouse, so there will be enough food in my temple. And if you do, I will open the windows of heaven for you. I will pour out a blessing so great, you will not have enough room to take it in. Try it and put me to the test."
You see, he really wants us to test him with money. How incredible is that? He knows us so well that he's willing to be put to the test to prove that he is a generous God of his word. Truly, it's our hearts that are the real bank account. What we pour out of it and what we store up in it will determine if we've lived a life wasted or a life fulfilled with the blessings of renovation.
God cares about our hearts the most. When Jesus watched the widow put her last 2 coins into the offering, he declared that she had given more than the richest among them because of her motivations. God doesn't need our gifts of finance, but he will use them to bless others in need. He's more concerned with why we're giving versus the amount that we're giving.
Yeah, to be generous with our money and our time, yes, but we can't forget that each of us has so much more to give to the kingdom. I mean, we have mercy, love, grace, faith, and understanding. And when we choose the path of a generous heart, the seeds sown into the healing of others are also planted in our own hearts. Now, Jesus lived a life of generous giving, and as we step out in faith to do the same, we'll find the rewards are so much better than just dollars and cents. So let's wrap up this week while discussing our third question. Go ahead and pause the video here and start discussing.
Thanks again, Gabe and Rachel. I don't know about you, but I'm always challenged when I hear the call to be living my life as a more generous person. And so obviously we're talking more than just our resources, our money, our things, but what talents that we have to be generous to give for the kingdom. Okay, so here's what you can do this week. As from the things that you've heard, there may be a person that God has brought to your mind that I just need to reach out to them. It may be like taking them out for a cup of coffee, taking them out to lunch, but maybe it's writing them an email and just sharing with them the things you appreciate about them, to encourage them and to lift them up. So let's look at practical ways that we can live more generously with one person that God puts on our heart this week. God bless you as you go do that.